Hello internet, it is me, the Gamer Musician. Today I'm here armed with new footage from the other day's Nintendo Switch presentation, and I'm going to be talking about the various races in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and their differences from prior games. Prior to this, we'd only really seen some enemies, as well as some Sheikah and Koroks, but in this most recent trailer, we have a large number of different races shown around Hyrule. And due to that, it is time for me to discuss them all. Okay, so before we get into the newly shown off races, let's just quickly go over some of the other races we've seen. Firstly, we have the Sheikah monks. To be honest, there's not a lot we can really say. The only real Sheikah we've seen before this have been the various Impas, unless you agree with the theory that the Twilight are descendants of the Sheikah. Putting that aside, we have a couple of older Impa variations before, such as in Twilight Princess and A Link Between Worlds. However, the most recognized elderly Impa is the one from Skyward Sword, and interestingly, she is often seen in a similar pose to that of the monks in Breath of the Wild, sitting cross-legged. Beyond that though, there's not really a lot I can say. It is interesting to note though, that the monks in Breath of the Wild actually have a much darker skin shade than any of the Impas we've seen prior, though, of course, it's never been stated that all Sheikah share a common skin tone. Next up, we have the Korok. The Korok are a widely recognized race in the Zelda series due to their roles in The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, so it is a welcome sight to see them return. I honestly don't have anything really to say about them. They don't really look that different. Their style has been matched to Breath of the Wild's, and by that I mean they have a minor graphical redo, but beyond that, they look the same. Next, the race I am referring to as the Avians, Falco and Cass. I have a theory on these two that I've been working on since the Game Awards, so I'll probably upload that soon. And in that video, I described the two of them in such detail that I'm only going to talk about this briefly. Falco, as he is dubbed by the fans due to his similarities to the anthropomorphic bird from the Star Fox series, is a darker blue color with the scarf and a big bow. Cass is a minstrel with a lighter blue shade who is also a much larger avian, and he carries a harp. It's important to note the differences between the avians and the Rito. There are a load of videos about this around YouTube, but just know that they're different. So now, I will also talk about one race that we've actually seen before, or we've had at least one member of prior to this trailer, though now we have some other examples, beyond just the one. That's right, I'm referring to Hylians. While prior to this we had the old man, now we also have some footage of the woman, who at this point cannot be anyone but Zelda. Now, from what we've seen about them, there isn't a lot of things that are different with them either. They still have their trademark long ears. Of course, as with everyone else, they have a different style to match the new game. However, the change is a lot more noticeable than with the Koroks. Also, Zelda is looking really good in this game, by the way. Next, some of the races which, while I'd always hoped they were in the game, had not been announced before and now are. These are the Zora, the Gorons, the Gerudo, and the Great Fairy, so I'm gonna go through them all. The Zora are looking quite different. From what I can gather, it appears that the only regular Zora we've seen so far are the royalty. Now, why do I think that? Well, the closest thing to a red Zora is the royalty from the Twilight Princess. But the issue with this is that the Zora royalty in Twilight Princess, while being a lot closer to red than the regular blue Zora or the Green River Zora, are still not really red. They're closer to purple. But in comparison to the other Zora, I feel like the ones we've seen in the trailer have to be royalty. Also, this makes a lot of sense, since the trailer seemed to be showing a lot of important story characters, and ignoring Majora's Mask, the only Zora that generally get actual plot importance are the Royal Zora, you know, like Ruto, Rutella, Rallis, or even Auron in A Link Between Worlds. So yeah, we have a couple of different Zora in the trailer though. The first one is a much more masculine looking one, with the stance and appearance of a warrior. Next up, we have this much more feminine Zora, who I can only assume to be a queen or princess. Couple of reasons. Firstly, there's the red color, but there's also the Zora sapphire design on her head. Also, things like the various crystals around her body seem to indicate this. And finally, there's the warrior Shark Zora, who has a head that is a shark. But as I was finishing my Zora analysis, I noticed something quickly. Right here, in the shark scene, we see a new creature in the background. While I cannot be certain, I believe that it could be a new incarnation of the River Zora in the background. Why do I think that? Well, it's green. Canonically, green Zora are the River Zora, though they've usually been enemies. If I remember correctly though, they've never appeared in a 3D Zelda game, so it's really interesting to see something like this. Also, this one appears to be some kind of older Zora, so who knows what his role is. Either way, I think it's time for me to move on to the next race, the Goron. The Goron also appears quite different from some of its previous incarnations, so that's pretty useful to us. Firstly, the Goron is actually wearing proper clothes, beyond just the fundoshi they wear in Twilight Princess. The Goron has a sash, with some kind of interesting symbol on it, which appears similar to a mountain, or perhaps a flame of some form. Either way, the actual design of a single shaded piece of fabric with white lines and designs is very similar to the tunics worn by Link and Zelda, so that's interesting. The Goron also wears a chain with a buckle, which actually contains the symbol of the Gorons, which is cool. Otherwise, the Goron warrior looks pretty similar to usual, just an orange-brown rock man with a big beard. Also, the shadows around him and his hands are really strong, like he's glowing or something. Okay, onwards to the Gerudo. One thing about the Gerudo though is that they usually don't have a lot of children visible or seeable in prior Zelda games. So when we only see one Gerudo in the trailer, and they're a child, I have a lot to talk about. In the first shot, we can see her from the back. The hairstyle, while not a massive thing, is different from other Gerudo, being braided and not straight like in prior Zelda games. Otherwise, we can see her holding something golden, but we cannot really get a good look at it here, so let's move on to her next scene. Now we get a much better look at her here, so let's list some stuff. The first thing we can notice, and it's pretty obvious, are her eyes. Similar to Telma in Twilight Princess, her eyes are green. The trademark eye color of the Gerudo is blue, while it's amber for Hylians. Adding in with the fact that she has longer ears, the likelihood is that this woman is actually a mixed race, which would also explain the different hairstyle as well. Generally though, the darker skin indicates that she has some Gerudo blood. The item she has is actually some kind of circle with lightning bolt shapes around it. I don't really have any clue what it could be for though. Finally, the Great Fairy. She has a lot of differences from prior Great Fairy appearances. Firstly, it appears that this Great Fairy has ditched the skimpy vine costume in favor of a slightly less revealing getup. The Great Fairy also seems more prominently blue than the pink from Ocarina of Time or the green from A Link to the Past. Also, this one has a crown around her head. Perhaps this particular Great Fairy is actually some kind of incarnation of a Fairy Queen. We've seen the Fairy Queen in completely different forms in other games, such as Venus in A Link to the Past and, the Fairy Queen in The Wind Waker? Those two could not be any more different, so maybe this woman could be the Fairy Queen. But in terms of actual physical actions, she seems to act like the other regular Great Fairies from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, so who knows? Anyway, that's all I've got for you guys this time, so I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, remember to like, comment, and share. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to me for some more video game music themed videos from The Gamer Musician.